All right, recording in process.
Yeah, so you know.
All right, meeting started 6:01. Minutes. We don't have any from January, so we're going back to December.
Yes, it was sent to us for the December meeting,
Yes.
but we did not approve them because,
We didn't have a meeting.
no, December, we did have a meeting. To February. We had a meeting,
Right.
oh, wait.
They're December's meeting minutes.
Yeah,
We didn't have,
Oh, we didn't have a meeting. That is, I was thinking it was the one that Lee said to make changes to, but that was something. That was the other meeting.
That's fixed and nothing's up.
Okay, you're right. No,
I'm crazy, but I
That
just think
was
it was that crazy.
That was last. Regardless, we're still approving December meeting.
All right.
I'll look forward to a motion to approve December's minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. That we don't even have to do a roll call.
We're all here. That's awesome. Wow.
Great. To the friends. Here we go.
Friends are having a lovely time as usual.
I was recruiting members for you guys today.
We have a new member in Autumn Maurice, who is a little space, some friends. She's nice.
Doing shift upstairs.
Yeah.
There's everyone. It's a great addition to the crowd.
Good.
Hey, Autumn Maurice camera, so that's also something.
Yeah.
So we have a felton class next week that filled up really quickly.
Nice.
We have a tree program, the tree giveaway that we do around Earth Day every year. Partner with Neighborhood Forest has, I think, at least 60 families signed up, or 60 people, 60 trees to be distributed. So that's
Wow.
pretty good.
That is good.
It's still a few weeks away from the deadline, so. Fundraiser are being planned and eventually we'll get around to that old book sale, again, so stay tuned. That's what we have on the agenda at this point.
Yeah. Anything else for the funds?
I don't know. I mean,
Not yet, I mean, not yet.
Okay.
all right. Then moving right along to the director's report.
Yes.
We're there already.
Does anybody need a copy?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so, busy month. Let's see, staff. So just as an FYI, I will be on tomorrow through Monday. And our next staff meeting is Tuesday, March 3rd. And I think we'll actually have a full staff here, it sounds like, because Therese, who's seasonal, switches with Chris, will also be here, so that'll be good. Tentatively, I'm scheduled to present the library budget the week of the 23rd, and I met with Jeremy. Asked if the week of the 23rd would work, and he said, it's fine. So I did meet with him, we talked about the budget proposal. We talked about the two contracts for full-time, the children's contract and the library director's contract. The children's contract can't really move forward until she's spoken with union representatives who want to reach out to her, find out if she's looking to be part of the union. The library director's contract, did we send those out? I know we said.
No, we had talked
Yeah.
about it, but it didn't actually come
Okay,
over.
I'm sorry. He said that with the director's contract, it's a one-page addendum, basically, which includes the figures for FY 27, FY 28.
Yeah, you said to me, but.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I think you said, I wanted to think you said to me for a quick look at, but then you were gonna, yeah.
So it has the FY 27 and FY 28. He said that can be talked about, discussed, and decided on anytime.
Okay.
And as far as cars, like I said, Dan Byer and kind of, Nelson Carnero, I guess, are union reps, and they're supposed to reach out to her I'll
See if
double
she's
check with
interested
her.
in
Yeah,
joining.
and I saw Dan this week, I should have just touched base with him really quick. But he was doing a lot of facilities type duties, including fixing our storage room issue.
Oh, no.
Blackout in there. Oh, God, it's just, there was a light fixture and he had to swap out the, ballast.
Oh, okay.
And he had like replacement ballasts, which is wonderful. And
Oh, good.
it took him like 10 minutes. So
Okay.
awesome. Facilities is doing a bang up job, an excellent job. Let's see.
What is the benefit of? It's a question for Tara, I know, not
Yeah.
really, but what is the benefit to Tara joining the union or someone in her position joining the union?
I mean, there's a couple, and maybe Elena can speak to this too, but one is you have the backing of the union if there's ever any issues.
Okay.
You also have the backing of the union in terms of salary increases. And negotiating from that position.
So
What else?
who is, the question is, who is eligible for that? Like,
Right.
is that something that,
That's not something that direct, typically heads of departments are not part of the union.
Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
management usually isn't.
That, yeah,
Well-
the town hall union's sort of a, like, complex, so we've
Yeah,
got.
it's
well,
like-
that's why I wouldn't have expected her to be
Her to be
a
one.
member of it.
Okay, so we don't, the town doesn't have that many full-time employees who are not,
Management,
either like
Right,
management or, yeah, so there's the highway union, there's fire and police, and then there's town hall, which is kind
That
of,
would
it's
be
got
huge.
several, like, yeah, so full-time positions from several different departments,
fall into that.
including some department heads. as it
Includes the
turns out.
senior center as well.
and she wouldn't be considered management. at all.
No, because, well, and just to, when I was the children's person and was, I was full-time.
Yeah.
Children's, I was part of it. But the time, like, so there's a precedent there
Okay,
for her being a part of it if she so chooses.
yeah,
It's often like the position that's in the union and like, I don't know,
Right.
it's,
But see, I mean, she is, yes, she does oversee her, library assistants and, directs them on different projects and that sort of thing, but it's not, I don't know if it would be, I guess it's not.
she must not be considered, you can still have.
Responsibilities or,
Comes down to what we put in the project, in the, position description. So
Oh.
the position description states, management or like supervisory requirements. Then that's what usually kicks you out of the union or doesn't make you eligible to, but if it didn't specifically list that out, the spot could be eligible for it.
Even though she does have supervisory,
True, because it's all based on what that is versus actual operation versus what it says they're supposed to be doing. I'm speaking from a
right,
dealing with like
No,
local
but it-
can be different.
right, so my other question is, if she chooses to be part of the union, does that position then become part of the union always, even if we replace
it's
her?
subject to negotiate.
It is, okay, that was, yeah.
and if somebody else comes in later, like with you hire of a children's person, that person has time
To choose
whether or not-
whether they want to or not. Okay, all right, that
I
was
just-
my question. I don't, whether she does or not, that's not, up to us, obviously, but I just didn't know if that then became that precedent of that position. It was always in the union.
Sure, it allows it, it doesn't restrict us also from changing roles and responsibilities. So if we go down the road and say, this has morphed, our library has expanded or grown or whatnot, this role is now a real supervisory role. Then we come back and sit down with the town hall union and say, all right, we've had this change of scope. The position description is now different. Help us do this. So we can easily remove it from that option too.
Okay.
Let's see, and my apologies, there are a couple of typos in here. Like it's supposed to say in the third paragraph, and I started to talk about the Wolves Grant 527.
Oh, shame on you.
I know, right?
Sorry.
Oh, you know what though? I did correct it. I corrected it.
I was like, that's what you
Was I have a binder upstairs, which is like the record.
Yeah.
At hand, and I was like, I'm gonna change these while I can do this.
Yeah.
So some of you have a version that is maybe not,
Funny.
you know.
I have one more question before we get too
Yes.
far into it. The date of the week of February 23rd, select board meeting
Yes.
that you're tentatively
So
proposing,
is it is it usually the
is
Wednesday?
that Wednesday?
So we've got a bunch, and I have to look at the calendar. We have.
Okay. The budget proposals
Yeah.
are scattered.
No, there's a number.
All right, if you can find out that date, because
Yeah.
I'd like to just see
Yep.
if I'm available, I'd be happy to join, to come,
Sure.
but if it's the week before I go, so it depends on my work schedule, might be a little crazy.
23rd is a Monday.
Yeah, I can let you know. And I don't know if they even set that.
They might not even finalize.
I mean, I haven't heard about the specific schedule. for them.
Yeah, so when Jeremy lets you know,
Right.
if you could just let us know, and then we can decide who, if anybody is able to attend.
Yeah, I'll send out to everybody.
Okay. All right, sorry, I didn't mean to.
So I divided into 4 goal areas, although I did, when I talked to her and then I sent her some information, some email. I said, some of these goals too, you could swap out if you have specific goals that you have for yourself for this next year. You can interchange. As of right now, they're focused on school outreach, assessment of children's programs, which include a survey, expanding social media footprint and children's collection, assessment and management. And like I said, some of this stuff will cross over too. I mean, like if you're having discussions with the instructors over at class, some of that in terms of like resources and the sorts of things. Because one of our issues was, or has been, we used to have Karen over at Misco.
Yeah.
We used to have connections at Clef that were really good and sort of kept us in sync with what the curriculum is.
Yeah.
And the subject areas that we should focus on. I'd like us to get back to that. I'd also like us to try to sort of tailor more of our programs or some of our programs. I'd also like us to have increased face time with the schools, K through 12. So, but in any event, like I said, a lot of these are going to cross over because collection development, assessing the collection, some of that will depend on the conversations with the schools. That's actually, toward the end of our conversation, we talked a little bit about the no-shows, and I wanted to find out from her whether or not she felt that was something that she really wants us to look into. So yes, so the 2 of us are going to sit down.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got examples from Allison, sorry. And some ideas, and she has some ideas about this. So we will do that. Let's see. In the last director's report, which was January 1, I mentioned additional hours open on Mondays beyond 3. So in the budget request for the year, I added in 2 hours with the idea that I'll do 2 hours on the desk at the end of the day so that we can get to 10 to 5 on Mondays. That way we're catching the after school crowd because right now we're closing 3 and we're missing that group. So, after that, I just don't know in terms of staff availability, whether or not we can expand unless we start to look at like a 19-hour-a-week position that eventually could be expanded into a full-time position or just a full-time position in general and adult and teen services. But I think that's something we should talk about. When I talked to Jeremy about that, he said it doesn't hurt at the budget meeting to sort of soften the ground and mention this is the direction we're going in and sort of give a time frame. I'd like to think of it, and he and I talked like 3 to 5 year sort of window for that.
Okay.
To try to have that in place.
For the full-time person or for 19 hours?
If it was 19 hours, I'd like to get it done sooner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the full-time the third full-time position within
Would
3
be,
to 5.
right, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to get the meeting or earlier, but I also welcome input. You know, and what everybody thinks as far as how we want to do that. But what does that look like? Sort of thing. I mean, I have my own ideas, but that's what I'm thinking at this point. I think that if we can get there, I think it will resolve some of the other sort of open schedule hours issues that I see and where we'd like to get to.
Now, how are the hours, like, how is the schedule set up now with like between your hour, like what hours you choose to be here, what hours Tara chooses to be here, and then what hours like everybody else chooses to be here? Is that like,
Yeah.
you make up kind of what you want, or is that like, or is it like, hey, we need to fill these out? Like, how is that?
Right now, it's really just trying to get people into positions with the hours to get.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes any sense, if that makes sense. It's not.
Kind of, so like, we need to have
So-
people here from 10 to 5, so it's
Right.
who's available during those times, or
I know where you may be going, like, just in terms of,
it's just
Yeah.
in general.
yeah, like, frankly, I would like it if most everyone was here between the 9 and 7 PM, 9 AM and 7 PM hour.
Mhm.
I do know that there's a challenge in terms of individuals' work responsibilities. Have a couple, well, was it 3, 4, who have multiple jobs. And
Right.
so I'm trying to accommodate as best as I can. Is it always optimal? No. I'm trying.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
You're good, keep going.
So yeah, I mean, it's a juggling act.
Mhm.
I will say that there are weeks that I'm on the desk more than I'd like to be.
Well, and I just heard you say you're gonna have to take 2 hours on Monday in addition to that.
Yeah.
That's why I'm kind of like,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
do we need to shuffle schedules or look at that
Yeah.
again so that it doesn't always fall on you?
Right.
Right.
But
The
it should
people
know.
that I have, the people that I have available on Monday,
Mhm.
that's the way it's falling right now.
Mhm.
I might be able to perhaps have somebody come in later on their shift, but
Right,
that still means a chunk of time in the morning that's gonna be covered
right.
based on, the hours I have to give.
If you were looking at what the traffic is, when is, does it make sense? If you had to cover the desk, it should
Right.
be at the lower traffic area times, in my mind, so that you can still do everything else you need to do.
To that point.
Yeah.
Yes, I could have an individual who comes in at 10,
Yeah,
coming in noon, or if they're doing 10 to 3.
right,
Or if they're doing 10 to 1, maybe they're doing, anyway, it's a matter of, and then I could I myself could do 10 to noon,
right, when there's
which
maybe
is
less
less,
traffic
and it is
than,
typically on a Monday quieter. And so, it just could be done. Make
maybe
it a little
do
easier.
it right, so that it's not so impactful on
Yeah.
your schedule.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I get that. It's not a bad idea at all. So, I'm just, what I'm trying to do at this point is get us as open as possible.
and that's a great idea, that's
Yeah,
what we all want, I think,
Right,
that,
yeah. I mean, at this point, when I look at, I would love for us Tuesday through Thursday to be open until 8, frankly, because a lot of people have dinner and that, and they just can't get over the time. By the time all is said and done, it's 6:30, 6:45, and we're closing.
Yeah.
So, but how do we do that? It means we're gonna have to shift people. And they're gonna just have to stay later, and that's just how it goes.
Mhm.
And, so, I mean, there's definitely a schedule I have in my mind that would be great. I think it would be great if we were open 10 to 5 on Mondays and Fridays. I think it would be great then if we were 10 to 8 Tuesday through Thursday.
Mhm.
And then potentially doing on the weekend rather than 9 to noon, when at 9 AM from 9 to 10, it's usually dead here,
Do 10 to 1 or
10 to 2.
10 to
Break it
2.
down, and we
Yeah.
have an hour and do it 10 to 2. That way you've got like every day starting at 10.
Mhm.
The everybody knows, and then, regardless of where you end the day, at least it's a little better than all over the place, which is a bit sad. People can't. So,
Right. Is there any way to just, I mean, if Saturdays, if no one ever comes in from 9 to 10, does it make sense just to shift it from 10 to 1 now? Because that's not changing any of the times, but it maybe hits where people are more
Yeah.
available.
we could, I can't imagine, how many people are really gonna be affected. Typically, it's pretty quiet. Say, Jen? She's right up there. I was gonna ask her about on Saturday.
Yeah.
I've actually been doing Saturdays lately. We've all been rotating. And it's been good. Anyway, so.
Sorry, I digress
You
with
know,
that.
it's a good digression because over the past 2, 3 years, one of the things we've been talking about is how do we get more hours into different sections? And
Right.
we've been doing it,
Right.
each year we've been saying, hey, we want 8 hours so that we can fill this block. We want 4 hours so we can fill this block.
Right.
So in many respects, the softening of the idea of a long-term person, we
Right.
already started 3 years ago,
Right.
probably even longer.
Right.
So that part's not going to be a hard sale as long as we remind folks, this is where we've been moving towards, and we're already at this position.
Oh, and we've absolutely, I
Right.
recall the last few years talking about having something.
Exactly.
I think last year I might have mentioned adult services like a full.
We definitely,
We did.
we've definitely brought it up
So,
in the past, so,
Yeah.
and because last year was when they asked, I think it was last year, if memory serves me correct, that they asked us to use state aid for the certain amount, and then they were gonna kick in the next,
Right.
right? And then they said, the more we know about your long-term goals,
Mhm.
or short-term, long-term, whatever,
Yeah.
the more we can plan, so we definitely brought it up at that point.
Right.
Well,
And also,
yeah, so all I was gonna say is, and I mean, they've been saying this all along, but Jeremy brought it up even at our last meeting when we presented the rectory thing, that we need to provide them with a plan of how we're spending state aid, what our plan is to how we spend
Right.
state aid. And obviously, they're looking for us to spend state aid on things that might help out that they're not pulling from the town.
Right.
Or asking the town for more, asking the town, for more
Yeah,
increase.
like the 2 hours that are requested this year amounts to about, I think it was like 2,300 or something. They'll probably ask again.
Right, but maybe,
Same,
yeah,
you know,
I mean, do we go in and say, or do we have it as an ask first and wait for them to ask us back?
I think it's a bigger
Does that
part,
make sense? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
absolutely, but I think it's a bigger part of laying out what the asks we've done over the past however many years. Hours increases, so what that would, come up to a total of where we are today. Then mapping that forward for the next 3 years. It's a full-time position, we want to have that, we've already shown that we have a need and the community is asking for these hours, and we can show numbers, of how many folks are coming through the door. But without that vision, it's harder for select board or other groups to say, okay, cool, but how? Like that helps them get that picture. So, I think, you just rattled off quickly where your desired picture is of
Yeah.
like the hours open.
Yeah.
That needs to be written down and presented as a,
Yeah,
congratulations, your account needs attention.
Not mine.
Your account. Yeah, that's even better.
I know I've included it before in the proposal, but I think maybe it'll split it out and,
Yeah, the ideal would be if we could be open these hours.
Yeah.
And we're not that far off.
We're not that.
No,
We're not that far off.
there's,
And with this 19-hour position that you're thinking more short term,
right,
is that something that it's one person, 19 hours? Or is it,
Yeah, it's a full-time position.
question.
So we need to get to it.
Yeah,
one
this-
person that's 19 hours, which is
Yes.
technically part-time,
Right,
correct? And then we increase them
right,
later on to be full-time. Okay,
yeah, but I think there's, debate to be had about whether or not you even want to bother with that or. you want to
Just
sit
wait
somebody-
for full-time.
Full-time. So do you want to grow that position to a full-time position? You want to.
Position separate hours, like what's the goal to get our hours to where we want it to be? So like, however we take an individual who's filling a role
Right.
and bring them forward or not is almost, it doesn't affect what the library's desired doors open time to be.
Right.
We want to be at that 19 hours, that 19 hours is going to change something the next year.
Right.
Then we say, hey, we want to do that 19 hours.
Right.
We also voice and say this 19 hours is that next stepping stone, not the first, that next stepping stone to the full-time position. Those don't have to be the same person or the same position, because that can be renegotiated and changed as the next couple of years time.
True.
So it's hard for us because we are people. Like we want to take care of the people that work for us. We want to make sure we give them those opportunities. That is key. But for them to see those opportunities, they can also see that growth and see where like the hours are coming in and like, oh, this is something maybe I want to go for. So you might have someone on staff who's like, that's me, or that's not me, and that's okay too.
So going in, I just want to make sure that, it could, they'll probably ask. And so the question will be, do I mention an 18-hour-a-week position? Do I mention full-time? I mean, that's kind of your.
We are working towards
Yes,
a full-time position.
Right. And, but we're comfortable growing that, growing to that point, so
And
maybe.
starting with a 19-hour a week.
Right,
Okay.
I mean, growing to a full-time.
Yeah,
And also that gives them time to plan.
right.
Because when you bring on a full-time person, the tail that comes along with that, with all the other
Right.
stuff is big.
Yeah.
That's not an easy switch to do this too.
No.
So,
Yeah,
As we
it's
know.
not gonna be, it's not,
In the past.
yeah, it's not instantaneous. It gives the years, 3 to 5 before that.
yeah,
Actually happens. Okay. All right. Sounds good.
So the question just briefly on the school curriculum.
Yes.
National, a little bit.
Yeah.
Have you reached out to anybody at school before?
Actually, we've reached out to literacy coordinators before, plus, so we know them, and I would think that Tara probably will sit down with them initially, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't others that. we said,
Okay, I'm just trying to get a feel for what you've done, because
Yeah.
I already made a note for the high school.
Cheryl's there,
Oh.
so Cheryl's for the whole district, so
Okay.
it's curriculum.
Yeah.
It takes on that response.
Okay. Yeah.
We could have a brief discussion with her just to see if we're touching on all the bases,
Okay.
so
Great.
that might be a good idea.
Yeah, and then I just had our first school advisory committee meeting over in Misco. So I touched base with Principal Corey.
Excellent.
And so,
She's really receptive.
Yeah.
I think that she's gonna be.
yeah, and so we got to talk about a few things, but not everything that I wanted to talk about, so we meet this next one.
Awesome.
It's pretty good. The bus issue is probably not something that's gonna happen until next year, but I think it'd still be nice to try to get that.
I think just keeping this going within the whole administration
Yeah.
is a good idea.
Yeah,
Because there's things that they're doing now, they're trying to put in bids for high quality instructional material, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
not just, that's not isolated to just one teacher, one
Mhm.
class.
just go with one.
Yeah, so it has a corollary and stuff like, well, maybe it wants the same thing at school, or they want to do it in the setting. See what I'm saying?
yeah,
So I don't know anything about that, whether
Okay.
that extends to library, but
yeah, and when you talk, I said that, it's not a question I can ask before, but what is it that what do you need from us? What are the sources of things?
so it's really weird because schools are changing dramatically from where they were 20 years. You don't just have a book, you buy
Right.
book. They're interactive. Some forms of artificial intelligence are starting
Right,
to
yeah.
integrate in there, and you've got all this, this individualized teaching methods and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So it'd be good to see what they're.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to know like what sorts of multimedia
Yeah, exactly,
resources you're interested in, because those are sorts of things we could.
exactly.
Yep.
That's it. So
Let's see.
Can I?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Before you move on to the next one,
Yes,
back to the budget meeting, so
yes,
just to clarify, the week of the 23rd is the week that we have 3 meetings, so there's one Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday,
Okay.
so I don't know when.
which one is?
Yeah, so it might be, if there's a preferred one, you could probably request it early, but like, I know it's.
Does Jeremy know that? I mean, should I reach out to Jeremy and ask him?
I think he's working on this,
Oh, okay.
so, but I mean, I would say if you have a request, you could say that.
Okay.
It might, I know what he's trying to do is have the, not have the 2 school districts the same night.
Oh,
So
he
it's
mentioned
gonna
that,
be
yeah.
longer.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah,
so,
Do you have a gauge on where it's at this year?
where,
Like just budget in general, or is it still early? Too early?
it's,
I know it's a loaded question. It really wasn't fair. It wasn't fair on my part.
there's, I mean, it's all out there, but there are.
But the pin on the hand grenade is been removed.
Yeah.
You know, we're just waiting.
Well, I mean, I know
Yeah.
that side.
Right, well, then, the town is also facing.
And then, I guess that was more of where I was gauging, like,
Yeah.
is this across the board, or is it
So,
with one
Yeah.
group more than another?
so it's a lot of
It's against sport.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
So
Well,
there's
and
a
that's,
lot, right.
that's good to understand, like, we may have to wait a year for ours, or we take it out of state aid. I think we're gonna be at that point when
Right.
everything
Well,
else
that's
is
why I
going
brought up the
on.
state aid thing too,
Yeah.
because they're pushing for that too.
Well, and if that might be our only option.
Right.
That might be the only option if we want it.
But it's an awesome bridge option. And that's, I
Agreed.
think, that part of the negotiation I would recommend we leverage
Yeah.
to see, if we really want to go down there.
Mhm.
But yeah, Providence Street Point is on, that's a great example, another one project that's.
But isn't that was funded?
Oh, only partially. I mean, it's like I mean, so like there's state funding, there's like, yeah, different funding sources, but it's
Yeah.
still gonna be, the town's still gonna have to pay
Okay.
something. Whether or not it needs to be a debt exclusion is another question, but there are, that there was that Hellenic Center study, so about the
salaries, yeah.
the salaries, so.
And we were talking about right sizing them, but I don't know where that's at now, so.
So it's still, in process, but right sizing it does mean increasing the salaries.
Yes,
It does not mean breaking them, so, yeah, so I'll let you imagine the math, I guess.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a colorful.
It's a very interesting.
we have very done.
I love it.
Okay, that's fair.
Good.
Sorry for putting you on the spot.
No, it's okay.
Let's see. Oh, so facilities, not too much there. I mentioned the ballast issue, Dan took care of there. We have a light that's flickering in the vestibule upstairs. But it's gonna require a very tall ladder, and so you gotta look into that. And I did mention the snow that's sort of gathered on the awnings outside here. It's usually not a weight issue so much as it is when it starts to melt, especially upstairs, it starts to leak inside the windows. So I just mentioned it to him the other day. I don't know, if it gets bad, we're gonna have somebody go up there and go. It's been a lot of snow. It's everybody, I think.
Did you hide for a roof, right?
Yeah, we have a roof rack at home. I just don't know if it would be even the right angle.
Yeah, I don't know. I have one too. I just didn't know.
Interesting. I'll bring it by sometime. We can try it out and see,
At least get a phone call. There's a guy standing.
Yeah, because you might be like,
What?
James, here's my roof rack.
No, I would.
I won't go too much into the screened in gazebo, reading gazebo that the Finley family has discussed and talked about. if anybody's not familiar, they are interested in putting the bill for
Oh, I did. you mentioned
and
it.
constructing a reading, what do you want to call it? I guess I call it a gazebo, you know, a screened in with electrical that could potentially be on the empty carriage house foundation. Depending on the size, it's the kind of thing too, though, that could be put behind the carriage house foundation, and that there's a pretty decent area of lawn back there behind the carriage house. They were the ones who purchased the gates for upstairs here on either side for story time. They have money, like to do this. But I also mentioned to her that there's other considerations or town considerations that have to be gone over with probably Jeremy. Some things I talked to him about last time we met. So for example, if you decided to build here, actually build it here, that's more of an issue than if you built it off-site and actually trucked it over
So it's more like a shed.
here.
It gets
yeah.
considered a shed versus a
Yes,
fixed building.
right, exactly, something that's complete and then you basically shut the bolt down, so, which is possible, it could be done. But if you build it here, then then you're dealing with prevailing wage, you're dealing with a bid process.
Does it have to be if the town's not paying for it? I mean,
Right.
it could be like the Friends paying for it. It's
Yeah.
a donation, so they could theoretically donate it through the Friends and then the Friends do it. And then it
Right.
doesn't have to be prevailing wage, my understanding.
Right, like if they put it in through the gift account, like if. they-
Right, Amberly,
Thinking of the insurance.
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, yeah, well,
Like,
yeah.
put it
then
in a gift
also-
account, like, cause he said, well, what if you know, you have an account for gifted. And I said, yeah, there was like a children's gift account, but that's the one we typically, somebody made a donation, go into, but you're right, it probably could go through the Friends, guessing.
Yeah.
I don't know all the particulars, which is why if they're serious about this, I would recommend to them that they should sit down with Jeremy and know exactly what has to happen outside. I mean, I think they know about the permits and pulling the permits that they would need to. But I think there's a lot of other wrinkles. It's always nice, like when this happens, it's a wonderful thing. But it's never as easy as just, hey, let's buy this for you and then.
Now, Jeremy is aware of like the Friends, that, you know what I mean, that,
Yeah.
and he would be able, if that was a possible route, speak to that too, or is he gonna
Yes.
speak to?
Yeah,
Speak to that too, okay.
Even in our brief conversation we had some dialogue about,
The 501c3.
exactly, how that can interact and support. So, yeah, he's very informed on it.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect,
yeah.
perfect,
So you can speak to that. And
okay.
yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. It kind of makes more sense than the gift account, so.
And then, I mean, in theory, then they can claim it as a donation to the nonprofit as well.
True,
Or
yeah.
they wouldn't be able to if they just,
Tricky.
yeah.
Either, way, it's amazing. That's
Right.
very
It is
generous.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Exceptional.
I don't know, the dimension, I haven't seen, they're apparently working on some renderings. Haven't seen those yet,
Sure.
so I don't know the exact size on this. I'm assuming, I know they took some measurements over at the foundation, see what that was like. But how often does that happen for us? Not often. So, hey,
That's awesome.
there's probably some hoops to jump through, but
Yeah.
still, it's wonderful. So,
Those are hoops that we can get to, yes.
Yeah.
We can figure that out.
Yeah.
so I'm just holding off and seeing where it goes.
Cool.
Yeah. Budget. Let's see, 22,655 was paid out in January, 11,700 odd in salaries. Another typo here, my apologies. 10,880, not 8809.72. In operations, we spent 57.5% of the budget has been spent. That's right in line where we should be, 58.3%, so very close. Broken out, that's 55.8 spent in salaries and 59.3% spent in operations. Largest areas of expenditure were contracted services. 1,450 was spent for HUFI, which is our event calendar and registration module on the website. That's the yearly or the annual fee for that. Building maintenance had one of our biannual GEM appointments for the HVAC check and maintenance. That was 1,500 of that amount. Spent a little over 3,000 in books, and in programming, spent a little over 1,400. Does anybody have any questions about? Yes.
Yes.
I was gonna
I only got one though. It's easy.
Yeah.
For the GEM HVAC,
say, yes,
do you have a timeline yet from Dan?
No.
On when they're gonna take the?
yes, I know, because and I have mentioned to them, I'm not keen on staying with Jim. I think they're working on figuring out across departments what companies they're gonna look at.
Awesome.
But I don't have an answer on checking that. So they said, until that's the case, just stick with the, and I'll roll out whoever they go.
Cool, thank you.
Let's see, the FY 27 budget, I handed out to everybody that sheet. The issue with that sheet, if you look at the very bottom, it says, it's currently at 6,800 over the previous year, but that doesn't factor in salary right sizing and recalculating the book line to be 19% of the total budget after salary recalculations. So Jeremy said if I wanted to get to that number, to just kind of go with an across the board 6% increase on salaries. In doing so, 6% increase, and this would include the 2 Monday hours that I was adding in. If you look at the salaries line.
85.
185, it brings it to 197, 160. 197,060. And then if we calculate and adjust for the books, 19% of the budget in ops. In operations, it's 170,400. Which brings us to 367,560 for FY 27. And that's a $21,660 difference from FY 26. So that's okay. Good. But 6%, that's like I don't have his number yet. He said he'll get me the number before the meeting. That way I can calculate the books as well, and that's kind of. If you have any questions about. Well, I know we were talking about, where the asks are. So, everybody come. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I think it's fair, you know.
I say, I don't think you're asking for a lot.
No, it's not.
And a lot of that number isn't what you're asking for.
Right,
That's
right,
outside of your control.
right, exactly.
And
Yeah, the salaries piece itself is.
And you didn't-
Where it is.
Saying you didn't pick that, like that number,
No.
was given to you. That wasn't something you
Right.
are asking for.
right, well, and even some of the little stuff like that, we've now added in a furniture line. And that
Right.
might seem silly, but from that talk with Jeremy and a bunch of others, this is very helpful when the department takes on this instead of having to go ask for extra money and being like, here's what we're planning. It means we have a vision for where this stuff's gonna go,
Right.
so it's huge.
Right, yeah, just sort of out of nowhere, and they just said, you might as well put that in, because that's the sort of thing that we have to start considering after 10 years in this building, that
Yes.
our furniture is seen somewhere. As a matter of fact, two shelves just collapsed upstairs. So it'll be fun. We'll figure it out. Yeah, it's a children's. Yeah, it's a newer fixture, and I don't know if it's really making there. So, and anyhow.
I thought you were going to the way to kids.
Well, the weird thing is it looks like maybe a kid could have pulled it. And it's possible. Programs, I won't go into a lot of detail there. The story times have once again been completely approved. I always look for trends and, the yoga sessions for kids have like exploded.
Really?
Yeah, they're really getting popular. Last time, oh, it was the other day, I think there's at least 8 families there,
Wow.
with their kids, so really good that way. Deb Hudgens, obviously she's gonna retire, which is too bad because she still with quite a few folks.
Yeah, I happened to pop in one day last week, I think,
Yeah.
when she was here, and it was packed.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Really, and it's too bad, but I get it.
Yeah.
The Robin Williams event had 29 in attendance, that worked well.
I ever tell you I ran into him at a diner and
Actually,
it was so awkward. It was so awkward. In Hopkinton, the Spoon,
oh, really?
like we just both happened to walk in at the same time because I was working next door
Yeah,
and I went to pick up my lunch. And he kind of looked at me like, "You look familiar," and I was like, "Oh, I know you. I just met you a couple weeks ago at the Taft Library and he's like, "Oh, yeah. I thought, it was just very awkward."
nothing else necessarily in programs unless anybody had any questions there. Projects, the weeding of the adult nonfiction collection is finished, so now, the shift is on. We're shifting nonfiction, the 100 to 400 nonfiction, range, we're gonna make a brief stop and follow more of the titles there, there's self-help and inspirational in that. That section tends to get, there's a lot of titles. Self-help, inspirational, so we're gonna do a cull in that section. They're also, they did condense or consolidate the graphic novel collection upstairs for kids so that we can expand the nonfiction collection, which was kind of maxing out its space. So that's happening. In fact, that's what Autumn is working on tonight, the shift of that. Let's see. Oh, I just need to make a correction from the last director's report. So I thought that the 2 copies we had, we still had a lease payment on them. We did have a payment year to year, but that was really a payment for number of copies made, number of prints made, as opposed to actually a lease agreement. Because what happened is, I think even prior to my becoming the director, we made lease payments until a point at which we actually bought them out.
So the
Yeah.
per page was for ink
Yeah.
and maintenance?
Yeah.
Because otherwise there shouldn't.
No, it's also, I'm sorry, it's also for, it would be also for if they have to come and do maintenance.
So it was like a maintenance agreement and you got
Yes.
in toner and.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Yeah. But it wasn't an outright lease.
Right.
Because the machines are owned. So we are leasing the new copier that's upstairs. The issue with that, I've been having all worked out for me. I told Boston Document System I wasn't happy about, because actually, do you remember this?
Yeah, the warranty thing.
Yeah, I got
Yeah.
a bill in the mail from Leaf. I'm like, what is Leaf? I have no idea what this is. And it would have been nice if Boston Document Systems had said, listen, our leasing company is going to be reaching out to you. There's going to be a billing cycle for this. So be that as it may, there is now an additional $230 payment being made each month for the lease of the copy upstairs. And we can lease
They
it to
worded it as
home.
a warranty.
Yeah.
Well, it's really a lease.
Yeah, I mean, it's a, I'm sorry, yes, it's a lease.
But in that letter, it was worded as
Yeah, it was weird.
like, we have an option for you to buy like an extended warranty or something like that. It was weird. And we
Yeah,
were
it
both
was-
like,
I got it cleared up as much as I could get it
Okay.
cleared up, and the initial cost included like $75 documentation fee, but that will be there going forward. Because originally it was up over $300, and I'm like, this is silly, and it's gonna be like $225.
okay,
That means, or $230, and that means we're gonna have to make room for that. But as I mentioned in the report, we spent like 36% beyond our programming budget this last year. And I feel we can bring that in a little bit in order to do what we need to do and pay for this lease. Sorry, we don't have to, there are certain programs we can go back. And it's not like looking at a lot of money, but
Right.
there's flexibility there, as long as we are responsible. The amount of programming we bring.
I know we've talked about this before, but we still charge for copies.
Yes,
And that money still goes into like a revolving fund that doesn't come back to us to pay for the lease. Did that get
the
resolved?
copies and copy and fax, any of the money for those, for the machine, that goes to the town.
Okay,
Um,
because I was
that's
thinking,
always been the case.
yeah, because I was thinking if we upped the price on those a little, because we probably haven't been a stagnant price for decades. Could we up the price a little bit to
Oh.
offset some of that?
Yeah.
But if it doesn't come back to us, it doesn't help us then. Is there any way we can fix that? And share the questions, and I don't know if it's enough money to make. it
Yeah,
worth
how much,
it, But
how much money are we talking in a
So
month?
that we get in a month from fee, like
Copy
copy
and
and
fax.
fax fees. I don't know, it's on the order, it's less than 40 bucks.
A month.
Might be like 30.
But if we up that, so say
Right.
it's 10 cents now, we make it 20 cents or
Right.
whatever, now we're talking $80, and $80 a month is a nice little offset to
Yeah.
the 230. I mean, it's
Right,
not all of it, but it's not nothing either. And that might help. Since it's really supposed to be, the whole idea was to pay for the machine that it's coming from.
right.
Right.
I do wonder, like, I mean, town hall has its own copy things, but it might be worth seeing if they're getting a better deal.
Right,
Right.
Because there are, I think,
like a better lease deal?
I don't know, it's.
Well, that's why I
sort of
don't-
weird
I agree.
system, like,
It is
like,
weird.
that's $30 seems like
It's not,
really,
it's not a lot of money.
it's not a lot of money.
It's not crazy for one of those. It's probably a 5-year deal.
Yeah,
And does it include service and ink and stuff too?
so it's like a
Yeah.
service contract.
So it's,
They
yeah,
call
you're
it.
leasing, well, you're leasing, yeah, you're leased to own, but it's also service and toner at the same time. It's all kind of like bundled into one. And that, yeah, that's not a terrible number for that.
They tried
Depending
to
on the
keep it,
size machine you got.
they tried to keep it in line with, what we paid previously. But, clearly I didn't realize it wasn't sort of a lease before.
Right, but it's also probably worth seeing what the town does, because if we bundle them, we might get a better deal. If
I'm
we-
kind of surprised that they don't already.
And-
That just seems odd to me that they wouldn't, but
We all function kind of separately.
separately, I guess.
But it may be too late for this one, because we're
Right.
probably locked in for a couple of years,
Right,
but going forward,
good to know, definitely.
right. And it might just be worth in general for saving money for the town, because if we're doing that, I wonder if the senior center has their own. And, or, anybody who's not in the town hall, may have,
Highway, yeah,
right. So there may be 3 different contracts
right,
happening with 3 different companies, where if we consolidate that to one,
We also have the money saved from the landscapers.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but it's true, there's probably a good $1,000, right,
Yeah.
based on the 3 times in it was 380.
Oh, right, because we no longer do that.
Because we got longer use.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, you're right, we should, presumably, we should be saving some.
Yeah.
And because facilities is doing a lot of these things now, yeah, sometimes we can do both. But there are things that facilities can do that I'm not gonna have to call somebody outside of the town to do, which is.
yeah, you need a light bulb change, you no longer have to get an electrician in.
That's right.
I have a really good question. So the building maintenance
Yeah.
line, how, has that changed? I mean, how has that changed since the town is doing more the maintenance?
I don't think, just in terms of what the expenditures, I'm a little,
I'd say,
like
can
we
you
spent
take
like
it?
almost 71% of that budget already. But also what we did recently was we moved money from contracted services to building maintenance, so a lot of the costs that used to be contracted services costs are now falling into building maintenance. So it's kind of tough to,
Right.
to, but, we've got about 7 left.
Might be interesting to watch, you know,
Right,
where are you saving money now that we can?
right.
Right, but even though Dan and his team might now be doing some of this building maintenance, will it still not be something that comes out of your cost center? Right? It's,
I would think that it,
in some cases,
In
it
some
feels
cases,
would.
yeah, I would think that, what, so for example, Bianchi. He's an electrician, Joe Bianchi, yeah. Or was that the father? Isn't the son doing it? No, or is it-
He's there.
okay, that's, yes. But, so they are still contracting with him for some jobs, but I would assume that any job that he would do, we would still need to pay
Yes,
for out of our budget for.
right.
But if Dan's able to do it, for example, like here, well, that's saving us
Right.
for not bringing in electrician.
Right. So there'll be something,
Some.
you can't get rid of that line item altogether,
Right.
but that's,
Right.
right.
Let's see, town news, just like I said, we went over things with Gary, budget proposal, directory, conditions assessment, that I gave copy to him of, see, I'll talk about. it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And then there's a new newsletter, the town newsletter that is gonna be going out, which is focusing on different departments, because transparency and people understanding what's going on with various departments. So they asked us to put together just a state of the state or whatever for 2025, which I was able to pull from the annual report, which is done and submitted. And so they're working on the newsletter now, as far as I understand it, and we all sort of, each department sent in, a 3-paragraph synopsis of what's been going on, just to get out to people. Kinds of things that are happening in town, because I think people don't necessarily.
Agreed.
And just one quick
Yeah.
point to revisit the West landscaping.
Yes.
In September, we paid them $772.
Yeah, so,
So if that's.
Oh, because that would be a fall cleanup, so that would be more.
yeah, and
That's
so,
right.
yeah, we might have 350 for like the spring one.
Okay,
So we're still up over 1,000, obviously. But,
Yeah.
It might have turned out to be like 1,400.
between the two lesser ones
Yeah,
plus the
plus that.
772.
14.
Just,
Yeah, so there was, say, we should be saving money.
Yeah.
Um,
How,
sorry.
how are they getting the newsletter to people?
That's a good online, correct? Or it's supposed to be,
So, well, Jeremy does want to see about having at least one go out.
as a print copy.
So that question is out there, like, I know like postage is expensive, but an insert in the free press is not as expensive. So, but that's, yeah, to be determined. So that can, I mean, he mentioned that as part of his TA report, last meeting. So his hope is that at least one time, there will be a physical paper so that people are aware of it, and then after that,
Go online.
just online. I think it'll still be online, sort of like, he had for the town meeting, he had his TA summary of it, and that was sort of like a QR code on the warrant that went out to people. So I think the idea was, alert people to check for it online in the future. So,
I won't go into the Nisco School Advisory Council, because I touched on that before. It was good to meet with everybody again. Some of the folks that have been on there with, have been there for a number of years, like 4 or 5 years. So it was good. Some other things very quickly, other town news that I didn't necessarily put in. The town is working on the personnel policy manual. And so they asked all department heads to review it. It hadn't been, I think, since 2014, maybe,
that, yeah.
or something. And so there's going to be a new version of that, hopefully approved within the next year, I'm guessing. Something like that.
That's the hope. I mean, it's a policy. It's, no, that's
Kind of ongoing thing, but
It's a, yeah, it's
Yeah.
a policy manual, so it doesn't have to go through town meeting. It's just, it will be like just, it's an internal policy. But I mean, I read version and it brings in some like protections to people that I appreciate. So, but yeah, I was reading it, like I wasn't reading it as an employee. So I mean, I'm technically an employee because there is a stipend, but like, I'm not a full-time.
We also, department heads met with some ADA coordinators because there's an ADA grant through the town. And so we had a presentation and then we were asked to fill out a survey for our buildings. So we have a sense of sort of what our challenges are, or what we think are our challenges. And then they made a visit. So they visited this last week. I know this place was built in, or at least we opened in 2016. By the way, it's 10 years.
I know, crazy.
Sorry, what month?
September, right? We had a grand opening.
Was it in September? Yeah, I think we, to me, I
Was it
think we
grand?
like in June, or
Maybe,
something,
yeah.
July.
Maybe,
July,
yeah.
I think we
We're celebrating.
had that.
Yes, and then we had the grand opening in September.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was free and-
Yeah.
yeah, we should.
As only libraries can.
Gotta be,
They mentioned to me a couple of things that they had noticed that weren't necessarily code, but they may have
they
been
code what we
more
did.
recently, they may have been
Yeah.
when they did it. I don't know, like, what kind of fixes we're talking about in the end with all of this, but I know that for our buildings, there were a lot less issues than on some of the other buildings.
Sure.
Yeah.
For like the senior center,
Yes.
volunteer built
Yeah.
years ago, so.
Yeah, exactly.
They will have a very detailed report of things that, I think they don't, it doesn't have to be fixed, but the goal is to move towards compliance. But like,
Yeah.
big things and small things, right? Like,
Right,
the ramp is a big issue,
Oh, over at the.
senior center.
the senior center.
Yeah.
But like, it's like, the height of the ramps.
Right, yeah. that was-
The height of light switches. Like, so many small things.
And then the one coordinator asked me about like what we have for a site impaired, and he asked about a large print collection because he hadn't seen it. So, well, we have a large print collection, and he asked about like readers, and I said, we're more than into readers. Machine readers, that'd be great. So that sort of thing. So that was interesting. And I mentioned the annual report. Just a couple other things. The Girl Scout who asked me last year about selling subtitles has
Oh,
now reached out,
I saw that policy go
which
through.
is why,
Yeah.
and honestly, I cribbed this from Cranston, Rhode Island's policy. It's not very different.
Yep.
Because there was some really good language in it. I'm like,
The same person reached out to you again?
yes. The thing is, that's interesting to me. Oh.
Always count on it.
Interesting, thank you, trust me, I just.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I sent out a second version of it.
Saying something.
Almost like she gets paid.
Anyway, so I put it together. You can either review it and decide if you want to approve it. I guess what I need at this point is, we have a patron conduct policy. The patron conduct policy talks about solicitation. But it doesn't necessarily talk about if you're doing, people are buying something as a fundraiser for, if you're doing fundraiser work outside the library, inside the library. So that's why I put it together. We can talk about it, but that's the reason I'd like us to have something to fall back on at this point.
That didn't happen.
I don't know if that's the sort of thing that we can resolve tonight or not, sorry. Despite the.
Okay, it reads okay, other than that, I mean, I think it,
It was, their policy was much longer, but I pulled the thing that I felt were applicable for us, made sense. And weren't replicated in other policies, because they had some things in there that we already had.
Okay.
he sent me.
So anyway, I would like to, it'll probably be this next week, but I would like to get back and say, listen, either we're working on a solicitation policy because we have concerns about that, or the trustees have concerns about that, or whether or not this is actually approved. So we'll get back to that, I think, anytime.
Sure.
Oh,
Which is next, I
Yeah.
mean, we're almost there.
permitting, so Jeremy asked me about permitting, Elena, do you know anything about this? Because there was something about permits and whether or not the trustees have ever had to deal with permits, and I said, I don't recall anything about permitting and why trustees would ever need to be involved. I just couldn't remember my conversation with him on that. So,
What is the context?
the context was just a meeting with him where he was saying, where he had some notes and he said, you know, do the trustees deal with permits?
You mean if we had like an event or something? would we
Yeah, I
have to
think
get-
that's.
So-
It was kind of.
I feel like when we did cow chip bingo,
Yeah.
Well, the
we had
friends,
to get a permit,
Yeah.
the friends had to get a permit.
but there's nothing that you'd have to work through the trustees for. So,
I don't believe so.
Okay.
It
I'll
was
just follow up with
strictly
this.
through the town. We had to get a permit to have, because we were having it on town property. And, we had talked about with Lisa, brought to my attention, so we also had to get, liability insurance, you know what I mean, things like that. Which is another friend's issue, but that's,
all right, so
I
what I
don't
told him was I couldn't.
not
think
to
of
the
anything.
trustees. I don't think we had to go
I
to
think
the
we have to go
trustees
to
at
the
all.
trustees.
Um,
Could that be permitting for structures or things they want to put on the property?
so whether or not we've encountered that at some point, yeah, I don't know. I can,
We could be there if a member of the trustee or the trustees as a group were identified as the primary, like, project manager for something. So not the official, like, engineering project manager, but like within the town, like, hey, you're the designated person for this. We may become a signature for permits. But that, we would only be one line on that signature. There are many other checks that would have to go through.
Okay.
Exactly.
I wasn't sure, but maybe that's.
That, but we haven't, as far as I know, we haven't done that in
No.
recent history at all.
I mean, it might have been for this building, way back when.
Right.
When they were renovating this and moving forward with this, that they may have been one of those
Sure.
signatures on that.
Oh, maybe.
But that was prior to anybody on this board.
Trustees.
Project manager may be the wrong word, designated person, so the designated entity, where normally it would be the department head within the town. It could be, as we are our own elected body that supervises and supports the library, we could be that signature.
Okay, interesting.
So yeah, maybe when they did this library originally,
Mhm.
maybe Amy would have signed off. on
Well,
it.
was it Amy then? Or was it? Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah,
I
it was Amy.
think it was Amy. Yeah.
So regionals, the only thing I was gonna mention with regional, that the MBLC's budget line increase across the board for the year will be 2%. Wasn't exactly everything they wanted, but it's still 2%, which was, they felt was considerable considering. the climate. So that's good news. There was a federal loan and grant freeze, but that was recently rescinded, so they were happy about that as well. Budget, I don't have too much to talk about in terms of the budget. There are a couple of areas of concern. Contracted services, we spent, close to 78% of that budget. Building maintenance, we spent 71% of that budget. In programming, we spent 77% of that budget. There are some other budgets, however, that are decent shape. Certainly utilities, fuel, that number is going to change because of winter. We're starting to get bills upwards of $1,800 to $2,000 a month. I think we're in all right shape. at the moment, running a little behind in books, maybe a little bit behind in salaries, but not too badly. Does anybody have any questions about the director's report or the budget?
No.
Okay,
Policies.
yeah,
What do we want to do with the solicitation policy? How does everybody feel about it that's had a chance to read it?
I read it beforehand, I'm comfortable. with it.
Yeah,
I thought it's fair, so.
Yeah. Do we want to make a motion to approve minus the one typo? With, you know, yeah.
right there.
Motion to approve the solicitation policy. Uh,
All in favor?
Still doing this type. My typos. But yes, all right, so I will, I'll make sure to correct that, and then I will, mark it as approved. And then I will get back to her just to say. I never have really even asked her about like her troop leader, you know, was this something the troop leader wanted? Or whatnot? This will be good because you don't really like, place is supposed to be for easy access.
Did the girl herself ask, or did the?
So that was one direction I thought about going in, was to say, what is your, you know, your troop leaders, what's your thought?
But if you open it up to one,
Right.
now you've got to open it up to every group in town.
And don't, you know, if you're gonna, you know, people outside the doors here, that's not,
Could be off-putting.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Do we have any more policies? We have to work.
Emergency policy.
Yes, so, it's totally up to you guys. We've had it in the docket for a little while. I think we put, it is
Yeah.
corrected. They aren't very much. So we're kind of at that point of any final questions, concerns, and if not, to put forward to a vote.
I put forward a motion to approve the emergency, what's the legal name, the official name, sorry, I don't have it in front of me. It's gonna pull up
Employee emergency procedures.
the employee emergency procedures document.
All in favor?
If you can send it to me in its final version.
Yes.
Make sure it gets through our library policies.
Perfect.
Thank you for your hard work.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that we can, with you guys, your approval, I am happy to come sit down and also do
Oh, good.
introduction with you, the staff.
That would be great.
So we can do it in phases, also just a basic introduction, allowing folks to have time with it, and then really kind of start going through the details over multiple months, because this is not a short process.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other policies? All right. Strategic plan goals?
I'll just go over real quickly. So we're coming up on the last year of plan.
Wow.
That is crazy.
FY 27 is the last for 5 year. We are actually, I just kind of calculated, went through the strategic plan. We've actually accomplished 2/3 of.
Wow.
So, and with, yeah, when you look at the rectory and the subcommittee and some things in terms of outreach and in terms of policies and reviewing policies. So we're in a good spot there. Some of the goals that Tara and I talked about, we'll address even more of those. I think maybe 5 or 6 of the goals we'll be able to check off the list. So it's been good, I think. But we'll also probably this next year want to start talking about, do we find the next advisor person to come in to put together the next 5 years. So you're really supposed to continue to roll as opposed to like letting time go by. Suddenly 7 years later, I guess we need another 5 years. So I've saved a bunch of emails from individuals who recommend what do we call coordinators, strategic plan. Facility.
Like the person who helped us last.
Right, exactly, yeah, but I'd like to, I think, go in a different direction for a different perspective.
Yeah.
But I have some names, probably a good, I don't know, 3 or 4 5 maybe names that would just. So during the course of this next year. Start to it.
Is that one of the plans in the strategic plan to have
Probably.
a strategic plan?
I don't think it's necessarily expressed, but
Maybe next time.
I feel like it was though. I feel like it was part of the discussion that it wasn't going to be the end.
Not a one and done.
Right, yeah, it was definitely, yeah, no, it was definitely part of the discussion that it was a rolling and it was gonna continue and.
And the idea was that, if you don't accomplish it this year, things roll over the next year. So what?
We reassess,
Yeah,
we still need it.
and we'll look at those, and then some of those will roll over into the next one.
Right.
I do want to mention that, the senior, homebound delivery, the next thing I need to do, I haven't done this yet, I need to put a notice in the senior newsletter. Just to send out that we are interested in doing the homebound delivery. I don't think there's a very large contingent of homebound in Mendon, but I want to make that available and to talk about the bus machine. So that's what I have right now. And there'll be some more things coming up too. A little further. All right.
Okay, moving on, rectory subcommittee.
All right, so James and I and Andrew and Sean actually attended as well. Went to the capital planning committee meeting. Was it just last week? And we gave our presentation. It was very well received.
Maybe it's awesome.
Thank you. Very well received by everybody. They appreciated that we took the time to kind of lay out a template that could potentially be used throughout the town in different departments. They appreciated that we took the time to kind of plan out our goals as to when we thought we would be paying for this and not come out of the gate saying we need this now. We were definitely sort of directed into doing that, but we agree that there are so many things that are priority in the town that are already, happening, that they need to kind of assess what's coming down the pike and let's say, okay, well, this is what our goal is. So we kind of gave them was it like a 5-year to kind of spread it out to be like a 2031 project. Sure, if it happens sooner, because James is gonna come up with somebody that's.
Trying.
Yep.
But so obviously, if if it was able to happen sooner, then we would be all on board with that, but at the same time, we were recognizing that it's a big ask, even though it's a smaller ask than we thought it was going to be, it's still a big ask considering what the town has kind of coming up. Yeah. So they appreciated that. They were very, everybody was good about, offering their suggestions and, Jeremy reminded us there are some things that we still need to discuss, like, there are other, what they call OPM and having a project manager is going to be an additional cost. And there were some other things, a couple of different things that were additional costs in addition to what GRLA provided to us, but it's a normal thing that goes along with every project. He also had a preliminary presentation for where the abacus study came out from this, as far as the senior center goes. So he shared that with the whole capital planning committee. But so it was good timing in the sense that we were presenting on the same night that he was able to present his initial. It's not the full report, but he had enough information. So that was, also good to be part of that and listen to that. Specifically, do you want to go into?
Sure. So for that also, because it's a good reminder, the abacus assessments did look at the rectory and this location as being a joint library senior center. So out of the 4 locations that they looked at, the Morrison Drive one was pretty much cut off the list because of access and the minimal existing infrastructure there. 62 Providence Street, which is the current location, which would be a rebuild, rehab, and an addition. That one came in, we'll say plus the 500K, because there's, certain costs that go with it, about 9 million. This address of 29 North Avenue, to get the same square footage that they projected that they need, would come to be about $11 million to do it here. And then the 3 North Ave, at a full new build, they were looking at about $13 million. Some of the big questions that came into those analysis, or things that were not analyzed, was parking. And the restrictions that exist on where can you put more vehicles. So it was a pretty open dialogue that recognizing this location is not likely a smart fit at all because of how restricted parking could be, and where we might be able to build it out. So that all being said, there's still a lot of stuff that has to go into that, and that was just a preliminary.
Correct, very preliminary.
The other thing that did come up, and you did an awesome job, you nailed it, but we also had requested that GLRA give us a quote for an assessment of what do we need to do on the building today to make sure it's going to stay there for the next 5 years before we actually go into construction. That assessment bid was $10,000. And I've actually spoken to a couple other folks in the industry, and they're like, that's actually a pretty good price. So that was.
I'm glad to hear
I'm
that,
glad to hear that
because
too.
I was shocked.
I was a bit surprised at how high it was, especially since they'd already done the assessment.
Right, and Jeremy, when we had our little meeting with Andrew that day, he was like, oh, if it's probably $15,000, $5,000, take it out of state aid and it's done. And I was like, oh, so that's kind of where I was thinking was gonna come in. He loves the state aid.
Oh my God, he loves to spend that money.
And
I'm thinking that money should go to the project we want.
I told
I know.
it was brought up in.
It was,
in the
yes,
meeting,
it
in the
was.
capital planning meeting, the recommendation of using estate aids to get that going, to start the project, to have that assessment. So you're aware that has been presented. We have circled back to GLRA yet.
No.
We also haven't had a rectory meeting to
Right.
kind of smooth that part. But I've also heard from a few different departments, so kudos to you. They've already said, hey, can we have your slide deck? Because we're just gonna take library off and put our name on it. So it saves time.
We go to you.
So we as a group and as a trustee group have really set a new standard of what is presented to the town, which is pretty awesome. So
And I think we did a good job of giving them kind of a lot of information in a short amount of time.
yes,
Without being like, this is reading the entire PRLA document, you know what I mean?
Yep.
The pictures, I think, were key, even though
And I got you a picture, but
they were really small on the screen.
technical challenges. That's fine.
We had some technical challenges, but the pictures I think were great because I took pictures of, the ceilings falling down and the
right.
storage room here that's packed with storage, and Tara's office, and we, quickly said, and this is this, and this is that. And so they were able to be like, oh, God, yeah, and obviously people have an idea of what it looks like over there, but it was nice to, remind
Having
them.
that conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, no, it was awesome. It's in a really
Good.
good
I was
spot.
on the OneDrive. They can have it.
Exactly, yeah, yeah, no, that's exactly what it's gonna be, but it was pretty good, and that spreadsheet, although that's gonna get tweaked, that will become
Yeah.
likely one of the standards for how do you take some of your capital projects and move it to the next step.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, what is that gentleman's name that's on your committee? Not Phil, the other one.
Jesse.
Jesse, so he had some good ideas of tweaking that spreadsheet, to, make it a little bit more informational, so to what their needs would be, so. Yeah, that's good, that's great.
Small steps.
Yep.
I'm still looking for the millionaire, I'm looking
Yeah,
for
Lord. So we're gonna meet tonight with our group after this and let them know how the meeting went, et cetera. explained to them the whole thing about getting, the extra GRLA proposal, and what that entails. And then, we'll take the next steps from there. Because I don't even know if we didn't know about that when we, the last time we met, so we kind of just did that, I don't know, after a meeting, Jeremy.
Yep.
Jeremy has had some great suggestions and he's very knowledgeable about all this kinds of stuff, so he has had some great guidance to give us, so it's been really helpful.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we don't really know the next step, but
Not yet,
we're kind of,
an assessment and then figure out what needs to happen to keep it standing.
right.
And then, but that's, yes, ma'am. It's okay.
I guess I'm more in the realm of like, building is owned by the town.
Yep.
It's not owned by the library. Why do we have to pay? And I know they don't have the money, but why do we have to pay to find out how to maintain their building for the next 5 years?
Thing, it could be something that goes to town meeting.
Right.
Like, so like, I think that's a conversation.
Well, I think when he was originally saying it, was thinking it was gonna be like $1,500 to $2,000.
Yeah, I think
Like, no big deal.
Right.
But now that it's $10,000, maybe we still can, I don't know.
Right.
But
But
I
I
don't,
that was my initial thought.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree, it seems like it is. Well, it's not clear that it's going to be the libraries, right? There is a proposal, but I think the other proposal is to tear it down and. Right, the other potential proposal, but in any case, it's still. A property owned by the town that should be, something needs to happen.
It has to be maintained by the town,
It
not the
needs to be
library.
maintained, like,
right,
like gotten rid of, but like.
so GRA will do the assessment.
I got an idea.
but maybe, we have a facilities group now.
And-
Why doesn't our facilities
Yeah.
group come and do that assessment?
Trying to,
Ah,
Right?
no, I'm gonna.
We have a whole department for that now.
right.
And that may be, that's gonna be a heck of a lot cheaper than having them come in and do it, right? It's not,
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
right, and then they would know what would need to be done to do the maintenance of
Yeah.
it.
Exactly.
That's probably the better way of going, and that's gonna be a
Right.
heck of a lot cheaper
Yeah,
for everybody.
yeah.
It sounds like it was a really great presentation and I haven't watched it yet, but I want to. So, yeah, I heard from somebody that it was great and I don't. Maybe it was still, I can't remember. Somebody saw it and really, appreciated the way it was presented, but I wonder, like, I feel like outreach and like letting people know about this would be good because it takes a while to build support for this sort of
Right.
project. So
We
like,
started talking about that.
yeah, so I wonder, and I don't know, I mean, there's a new online newspaper, like it might be, like,
So we talked about that.
Suggestions for stories.
Yeah,
Are we
Um,
talking about the one that's run by
Yeah.
Luttrell's? Yeah, because I did talk to, I forget his name, I know Sharon, obviously.
Marty is the,
Alright.
yeah.
Anyway, I did talk to him a little bit about this rec subcommittee and that, and so. I'm a little to-
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
to say that would be a nice story, a nice feature.
I don't know if there's a way to highlight it, like, on the library website, like like.
Well, I think we
for our
should, there should be a
presentation,
display here, the train needs to come back, where you put your quarters in, like, this needs to be in your face every time you see the library or think about the library.
Right.
where is the train?
I don't know, it's gotta be somewhere though.
It's still up to.
So, absolutely, and that's also one of the things we recognize in part of the conversations of, that's why we're not this is happening next year. This is why, why it is smart that it's okay to say, hey, this is likely gonna be 5 years out. Because we can start building that groundswell and that communication plan and make sure things are really happening, so that it really is.
And fundraise and do other things that we're saying this fundraiser is earmarked for
Right.
the build of the thing.
Yeah.
Or whatever, these donations are coming in because, they're specific
Yeah.
to,
Working with your group and, how do we
Right.
all bring this together and how do we all
Yep.
communicate this message together?
Yep.
And, maybe that relocation fund now becomes the rectory fund, because I know it's pretty much gone now anyway, but we transition into it now is earmarked for something else.
yeah.
And what about the CPA, the question of CPA funds, like how old is the building now?
53.
We just found an article, somebody just posted an article on Facebook about when they broke ground,
Okay,
and it was 1953. And then Mary Lee Seipel was the first baptized, if anybody knows Mary Lee Seipel, she then commented on it saying she was the first person to be baptized in the new church.
Oh, wow.
So,
Kind of a cool fun fact, right?
short answer, we have not gone back to CPA
Correct.
to start that conversation again.
yeah,
We wanted to make sure we got the assessment of everything in front of the select board and in
Yeah.
front of the capital planning group. Before we start saying, all right, what are the funding lines that we could actually start leveraging?
When we originally were brought it up as a rectory working group, there was definitely potential there. So,
Wait, what is the time?
that was what I was trying to remember.
Yeah.
You're close, that's 2 years away, so.
5 years is a good time to be back.
Anyway. Yeah,
but yeah, so we do have to circle back and, when you had sent out that email about Ann,
Yeah, I forwarded, like,
Yeah.
there was like
Yeah.
a form to fill out if you
yeah,
want.
when you had sent out that email and it was like that night or the next night, I was like. But we'll definitely get more involved with that as our next phase.
and then we'll talk about it, but, I started looking at the MDLC site for what their construction product is. I just got something email share with you.
Okay.
Rural and small libraries, there's an organization.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a lot, 5 to 15,000, but
Penny counts.
you know,
Right.
it can be for facilities.
Yeah. And we'll look into other grants as well and things. And see what's out there.
It is 75 years to be historically significant. Probably historic. So,
Yeah.
All right, anything else?
That's it for us.
Set next month, I know it's a lot, should we set next month meeting? There are people waiting for the next meeting. So the second Thursday would be the 12th.
Correct.
Me,
Works for me.
Yep.
Good.
work for you?
Sorry, so.
It's already done, I love it.
Super. Such a plus.
Yep,
Yep.
And I'll put forward a motion to adjourn.
Next second.
all in favor?
Ah.
Right along.
You didn't say I'm.
Not recording.
You can have it with your account that needs attention.
I know. Hold on, my bad. Hold on.
Oh, yeah. exactly.
See, I didn't need your help, Howie.